Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This week's video, we're going to be talking about sight picture and sight alignment. Sight picture and sight alignment is very important, obviously, to self-defense shooting, but it's one of those things that can be misunderstood or we can get easily wrapped around the axle about. So when we talk about sight picture and sight alignment the way I teach it, I want to address the reality that the threat, if we're practicing for self-defense shooting, has a say in what happens. So what I did is I recorded, and you're going to see it, a few blocks of instruction from my Defensive Handgun Fundamentals class that covers how I approach sight alignment and sight picture. All right, guys, so what we're going to talk about, sight picture, sight alignment. Sight alignment happens before sight picture or after? What do you think? Because what is sight alignment? What's the definition of sight alignment? Alignment of the sights, optimal alignment, right? We want equal light on either sides of that front sight post. We want equal height, so they're level and framed perfectly. And then sight picture is taking that sight alignment and placing it on what you're going to shoot. And then we focus on that front sight, right? Front sight, front sight, front sight. I mean, there's a place called front sight. It's such a big deal, right? Who decides what your sight picture is?
Brain.
Do I? Does the bad guy have a say in it?
He can change it.
He changes your sight picture at will. He decides what your sight picture looks like. The sight alignment is completely up to you. Or is it? Can he have a say in that too? How long does it take me to get optimal sight alignment?
Depends on you.
Depends on the distance, depends on what my desired accuracy is, right? Can our threat affect our ability to get optimal sight alignment?
Oh, yeah.
Can he make us rush because we got to get shots off quick? So the textbook, right, what we're looking at is we got, and again, my drawing skills aren't that great, so bear with me. That's about what it should look like, right? 3 buildings. These will be blurry, and then our front sight is going to be clear, crisp, clean, and in focus. At least that's what we're told. And that's a good thing, right? Now, can the human eye focus at 2 or 3 distances at once?
No.
Do we possess that ability? So, rear sight, that's 1 focal plane. Front sight, 2 focal planes, right? And then my threat is how many?
3.
So I have to reconcile 3 different focal planes before I can break a shot, yeah? Now where do you think I'm gonna start? You think I'm gonna start on the threat? You think that'll be where I'm focused at? So I'm gonna be accommodated, the eye will be focused on my threat. I'm gonna process a threat that justifies the use of lethal force. I'm gonna draw my gun, and then I gotta start reconciling. So I've gotta do alignment. I've gotta start with the rear to the front or front to the rear. I won't judge. And then I've got to reconfirm my threat is in fact still a threat, pick a place to shoot him, and then focus on my front sight and start breaking shots. At any time during that process, I may have to realign my sight alignment based on his behavior and what he's doing. If he's moving, can me driving the gun even slightly left or right cause me to have to realign? So if I oversteer my alignment, can I be left with less than optimal alignment? Is that less than optimal alignment going to affect my accuracy? If I break that shot, what if when I decide, all right, I don't have any more time, I have to shoot. What if this is what I get? What if my sight is stacked to that left side of the rear notch, or stacked to the right side of the rear notch? Is that going to affect my ability to shoot accurately? The degree is based on the distance to my threat and what my desired point of aim is. If I'm aiming high thoracic versus head, if I'm 2 feet away versus 15 feet away, what do I have control over? When I pull the trigger, right? He can't force me physically to pull that trigger. I have to make the decision, this is the time now. He's given me, I have to shoot this guy. I have to stop this threat, but the precise moment when I press the trigger is based on what I have. If I've got a good clean sight picture, optimal presentation, he's giving me all this. He's given me this. Then it shouldn't be too hard, comparatively, to get this sight picture versus this sight picture. But can I shoot with this sight picture? Yeah. Am I going to get hits? Depends on the distance, right? We're going to find out because we're going to shoot with this sight picture. I want you guys to have an appreciation of how much or how little it actually affects your accuracy. Because if you spend your gunfight waiting for this, you might get hurt. You may not be able to get this. Those of you running RMRs, this is where they really shine. Because we don't wait for none of this shit. All we do is look at the threat. We bring the dot where we want to hit, line it up, start pressing. At no time, using a optic on a handgun, will I focus on the optic. Which is usually the hardest part about learning how to use one, because some people do stare at that dot, either consciously or subconsciously. We're not supposed to do that. That's why with the RMR, it's been tuned. You'll notice with an RMR, if you stare at the dot, it's blurry. If you look past the dot, it's clear and clean and crisp and in focus, just like it's supposed to be. So if you say your dot's blooming, I have to question if you're looking at the dot or not. Focus on where you want to hit, put the dot over it, break rounds. Sight picture, iron sights, a little more complicated, isn't it? So we want to know how it's going to affect our ability to shoot accurately. This is not optimal, but I want you guys to know that this is a perfectly acceptable sight picture based on the context of a situation. And I have to underscore that word context. I am not advocating this is the optimal sight picture. What I'm saying is it's an acceptable sight picture based on circumstances. So we're going to check it out. Y'all ready? Cool. All right, just for me, from these common distances, I'm going to shoot with my front sight stacked to the left, then I'm going to stack it to the right, then I'm going to stack it low, then I'm going to stack it high. 4 rounds. My point of aim is going to be this circle. And I'm going to shoot it from 3 distances: left, right, high, low, left, right, high, low, left, right, high, low, as I move forward. So 3 distances, 4 shots at each distance. Let's see what happens. How's it looking so far?
Not too bad.
Not too bad, right? Anybody see the consistency? As I got closer, the respective groups started to tighten up, didn't they? Now, my first group was fired from how far?
5 yards?
5 yards a good distance for a bad sight picture? I mean, it kind of sucks. But which hits were outside of the A zone?
Just your high.
When I was stacking that sight post out of the notch. When I was dropping it into the notch, what was I getting? Just lower. So if this guy gave me this presentation and I drew out and my front sight post was stacked left and a little bit low, am I still going to get a good hit?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Is that the sight picture I want? No. It's not the sight alignment I want, but I'll take it if it's all I can get at that moment. The human mind doesn't do very well at the measurements of time. We measure time in a very gross fashion. No one can quantify half a second or a quarter of a second. Well, I'm not going to say no one, most people. I don't want to speak in absolutes. Quarter of a second, hundredths of a second, thousandth of a second. How far we go down that chain of what we can do. What can I do in 300ths of a second? Can I draw a gun in that fast?
No.
Why? There's more shit going on, right?
Yeah,
There's more activities that have to take place. So when you think about time, it's a relative factor of how much time you have available to perform a task. If I need that 300ths of a second or that half a second or quarter second or what have you, if I need it, I'm going to take it. And when I say need, no sight alignment, no sight picture means need. But are there things that we could potentially be doing on the square range that are aiding or possibly hurting our ability to shoot accurately and understand that this is our actual accuracy? What do you think? You think you might have developed some range-related habits that make you think you shoot better than you do? Or maybe you've developed some habits that are keeping you from shooting as well as you can. Who here has shot this kind of sight picture before? Every hand should go up. You will all have broken a shot with one of these sight pictures before. You didn't do it on purpose, but you did it. And then what happened was you refined your sight picture to this, and then you hit right where you wanted to hit, and you said, man, why did I miss that other round? Because you fixed your sight picture. If you shot with this sight picture, this was the sight picture, the sight alignment you had every single time, and you were shooting like this, we would have a problem. But a sight picture is, and sight alignment, are fluid things. They are not consistent. They are not set in stone. We haven't even talked about really how the threat is going to change your sight picture on you, how your threat is going to change your sight alignment on you. But keep in mind that every shot broken is a new sight alignment and a new sight picture, because that gun is going to recoil. And when it comes back down, how much time you put into the fine tuning of the sight picture and the fine tuning of the sight alignment is going to determine how accurate that next shot is and how consistent it is based on where the last round went. And the further away we are from our point of aim, the more exaggerated our quality or our lack of quality in that refinement is going to be. Make sense? Now you guys are going to shoot it. Burn them. So you stacked your sights left, right, high, low, because they obviously create an accuracy issue. Now you guys took a tour of everybody else's targets and you noticed that no two are exactly the same, right? Some are better than others though, right? Why do you think that is? You think that's because they were stacking less or more extreme versus quality? Or do you think maybe it has to do with the fact that I don't think anybody here has the same sights on their guns? Who's got a U-notch rear? That's going to create an issue with the sight alignment versus those of us that have 90-degree angle rear, just a traditional U-notch. We have a more finely tuned ability to align right angles, whereas you're trying to align a right angle with a radius. And any optometrist will tell you the human eye does not like that. And that gets into sight creation and why this sight is better than that sight, and how, you know, these are, an optometrist helped design this, or this guy helped design that. All irrelevant. Any optometrist that's a gun guy will probably tell you get an RMR. Now you notice we have one RMR shooter on the line. What does his target look like?
A ragged hole.
A ragged hole, right? And why does his target look like that? Because all he was doing was he was experiencing near zero parallax, while everyone else was dealing with focal planes, parallax, sight alignment, sight issues. What he was doing while you guys were doing stack left, stack right, stack high, stack low, is he was simply moving the window around the dot. But if the dot was consistently in the same place, and you move the dot around in the window, but it's still on the desired point of impact, what do you get? You get a ragged hole. Now, if we increase distance far enough, eventually we will start to see aberrations in his accuracy, because there is no such thing as a true parallax-free optic. They say parallax-free, what they mean is so near parallax-free, you will never notice. You will need a vise and a priest and a calculator and a slide ruler and all this other stuff to appreciate the fact that this sight is as close as we can get to zero parallax. Because if two things exist at two different elevations, parallax is always going to be there, even if it's near zero parallax. I've seen people demonstrate parallax on some optics, and it does take math and setting it up to fail. For the distances we're shooting at, you're not going to notice it. So now we know that if our sight alignment is not perfect, we can still get a hit. And we already kind of talked about the times when maybe your sight alignment wasn't great, but you took the shot anyway, and then once you cleaned it up on that recoil, when the gun came and settled back down and you picked up your sight alignment again and you got your sight picture, that your next shot was right where you wanted it to go. So you felt like that first shot was bad. So what we need is consistency in sight alignment, right? Now, shooting paper allows me to cheat a little bit because I see the holes and I can make micro adjustments in my grip and my aim to clean up my shooting, can't I? Because I'm seeing where my holes are, so I can correct that. We don't want to fight that though, because that's our natural desire for eye-hand coordination. All right, get this rock here. Did you do any math to catch that? Any conscious thought whatsoever? Did you factor velocity? Did you factor epid? Did you factor rate of descent? Did you factor point of destination, point of origin? Did you factor no trigonometry, right? You just caught it. How in the hell did you do that? It's called eye-hand coordination, right? Proprioception is our body's ability to know where our limbs are. So you didn't have to look it into your hands. That's kind of a gross motion. But how did I track it?
Your eyes.
With my eyes, right? I have the ability to track prey. That's why my eyes are in the front of my head, so I can judge my distance to whatever I'm going to eat. Because we are diurnal predators, even though now these days we hunt at the supermarket versus for dinner. Some people hunt recreationally, that's great, but there's very few people left on this planet that do it for a living. Like literally a living, as in they will die if they do not hunt. But we haven't lost the skill sets. What weapon system on this planet requires no eye-hand coordination?
Missile.
Computer. Right? Shit we invented, right? Do firearms require eye-hand coordination? But do we try to take the eye-hand coordination out of the equation? Because we talk about sights, right? We don't want people shooting without sights, right? Do you think eye-hand coordination can aid you in your ability to shoot accurately?
Absolutely.
Do you think there can be a kinesthetic, if you want to use that word, element to our ability to shoot accurately? Can I take the sights off my gun and still shoot with a reasonable degree of accuracy?
It depends on your distance.
Distance is going to be a factor, but so is practice. Do you think a major league pitcher threw his first fastball the very first time he touched a baseball? He had to practice, didn't he? Even though he may have had a natural talent, a natural or a manufactured athletic ability. That's why Frank Thomas has an asterisk next to his record, because his was manufactured largely. I don't even like baseball, so man, I'm like Switzerland. I'm neutral. Practice leads to proficiency, even if you start with a natural talent. So even talent can be refined, yeah? Do you think we help or hinder in the way that we practice shooting that natural eye-hand coordination? Because tell you what, every other weapon system we've ever used on the planet has required eye-hand coordination. Swords, spears, bows and arrows, things of that nature. So we want to get back to, at least partially, being able to rely on our body's natural ability for eye-hand coordination to aid us in the ability to shoot accurately. So if our sight picture is stacked, we can assist in still keeping an accurate shot group based on our ability to understand where our hands are in relation to where we're hitting. I'm going to demo it. I've got a gun right there, has no sights on it, and I'm going to demonstrate how accurate or inaccurate you can be without sights. Now everyone has in fact verified that this gun does not have sights on it, right? So my point of aim every time is going to be the head. I'm going to try to shoot that little triangle. Now I'm going to shoot based on my ability to reconcile what I see with where my hands are pointing. Eye-hand coordination is going to be a huge factor in this. There's some fancy scientific words behind what I'm about to do. We're just going to call it eye-hand coordination. I'm going to do it from a couple different distances. So from right about here, I'm just going to press out. Pretty good. Move it back a little bit. Did it get worse? Am I still getting headshots?
Absolutely.
One more distance. Now this is the distance where I might throw one or two. All right. How many rounds did I throw? My count is none. What about you guys? Did I miss the did any round not hit my target? How many rounds hit outside of where I wanted to hit? Like 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Now how did I do that with no sights?
Practice. Your natural point of aim.
my natural point of aim, my natural eye-hand coordination. I was looking where I wanted to hit, and that's where the rounds went. It is not magic. It works similar, not the same, but similar to the principle of how a pitcher is able to deliver a ball to a catcher. He's gonna get it in the neighborhood. Now the catcher may help him, but he's still, I mean, that's a small damn target from how far away he is. Now I'm not saying shooting is pitching, but I'm saying it's the same principles. Now if I can tie my natural eye-hand coordination together with my sight alignment and my sight picture, what should I do? I should be shooting like a freaking laser beam. Do sights help or hinder eye-hand coordination? They hinder it a little bit, don't they? Because we focus on that front sight. Now I'm in no way advocating that you stop using your sights. But what I'm gonna have you guys practice, and something I would encourage you to practice on your own, is your ability to shoot without them with a goal to use them. That makes sense? The reason I do this is because it has been proven time and time again that when your sympathetic nervous system, your body alarm, your fight, flight, or freeze system activates, we have a high likelihood of losing our ability to near focus. Would you consider the front sight post a near focus? So might I not even be able to see my sights for a brief moment in time? Could I wait for it to wear off? Could I think my way out of it? Yeah. Do I have time? I don't know. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. Spontaneous shooting where I have to immediately go to guns. I ain't got no time. In a judgment shooting where I'm telling somebody to stop doing whatever they're doing or I'll shoot them because of it, like drop a knife or a bat or whatever, maybe I've got time to find those sights. I cannot say definitively this way or that way because I do not know, and neither do you. We cannot say this is how it's going to be. We can say this is likely. This is unlikely. Through thousands of evolutions of simunitions force on force, I can tell you categorically that students do not see their sights until they have become inoculated to stress. Who here has been through force on force? I know you have, Garrett. Did you see your sights?
Not at first.
Not at first, right? But you get to it. So unless you have the luxury or the ability to take force on force classes repetitively, you may not ever become inoculated to the stress that is similar, not the same, but similar to a real life SNS activation. A real life fear of death and injury, and a real life physiological desire to hurt the bad guy. Why do you think we lose the ability to near focus?
Tunnel vision on the threat.
Tunnel vision on the threat. So, how long have guns been around?
A couple hundred years.
Ballpark it.
1500s?
Okay. Probably later than that. Earlier than that. Let's say if we have 100%, guns have been around for 3% of the time we've been fighting. So on a scale of 100%, for 3% of that 100%, guns have been a thing. What were we using the rest of the time?
Sticks and rocks.
Rocks and sticks, and then later we had crude knives and axes and addle-addles and all kinds of these other crazy weapons. And then swords and spears and spontoons and all kinds of other weird named weapons from all around the world. And what do all those weapons have in common?
And
Ain't no sights on a sword, bro. You look at what you want to hit, and you cut them there. Anybody shoot archery? Now, modern archery, we have sight posts now, right? What about a longbow or a recurve? You look where you want to hit, right?
Line up, yeah.
How in the hell do they do it? There's no sights. How are they getting that arrow there? Eye-hand coordination. Eye-hand coordination will take you a long way in this world. So if my body has a natural physiological desire to focus on the threat instead of my sights, I've got two options. Stress inoculation to get my body out of that habit, because that's my body's natural desire and I've got to overcome it with training, which arguably can be done. There's a point of contention on that among a couple neurologists that say it can or can't be done because it's precognitive. Or I've got to use a sighting system that does not require me to near focus, such as an RMR on a handgun. And that's why I'm a huge fan of red dots on handguns and rifles, obviously, because it allows me to focus on my threat. The final aspect we have of sight picture and sight alignment is what the bad guy is going to give us, which we'll get to next. But first, we're going to do a simple exercise. You guys are going to shoot, you're not going to use your sights, and we're just going to see how accurate you are. So So you guys shot without the aid of sight picture sight alignment. How is your accuracy?
Fair.
Good hits, right? It obviously could have been better if you're using your sights. So if you combine the two skills together, what would you get?
Laser.
Ideally, you'd be shooting a laser. The trick is how to get there. This is something you got to practice, but you do not want to use a disproportionate amount of time shooting in this way, because even though you can shoot accurately without the aid of your sights, you do not want to rely on it, because that accuracy is completely subjective to the situation, the distance, the context, the threat, the time available to deliver rounds. So while I may not be able to see my sights for those first couple rounds, my ultimate goal needs to be a sight picture. Because that is the only way that I can, without a doubt, deliver knowledgeable point of aim, point of impact fire, as long as I'm doing everything correct. So, even if my first 2 or 3 rounds, my gun's blurry, eventually I need to tune it in and get those sights. All right, so the final, I guess, piece of the puzzle or key or whatever, whatever you want to say, is what you're aiming at itself and what kind of vote it has in your ability to get sight alignment, sight picture, which we already kind of talked about, but now we're really going to dive into it. You guys have seen these are 3-dimensional targets. Why are they 3-dimensional? Well, people are 3-dimensional. You will never, I can say never with a high degree of accuracy, be attacked by a strictly 2-dimensional object. It could happen. There are other dimensions. There's all kinds of shit out there in the world and in space and stuff we don't understand. Look, what's that movie that just came out recently? Interstellar?
Yeah.
Like, there's some weird shit that can go down theoretically in the universe. But I'm pretty sure that those potential multi-dimensional beings will not try to mug me, because they are above material wealth. So I have to deal with a world that is 3-dimensional, and we already kind of demonstrated that, didn't we? I threw you the rock, you caught the rock. That is you being able to reconcile a 3-dimensional object in a 3-dimensional world. But if we spend all our time shooting at 2-dimensional objects, is that actually helping us? Yeah, obviously it works, because people are gonna get shot today on purpose, doing some shit they shouldn't have been doing. It's gonna be good or okay accuracy, and that person with a high likelihood was trained on a 2-dimensional target his entire life. Maybe he got the good old-fashioned NRA B-27, you know, the pensive man. Everybody shoots that guy because he's a dick. But he's also 2-dimensional, and he gives you the best presentation, ideal presentation for your sight picture, for your sight alignment. How many of you guys have seen a graph where it represented sight picture over a threat? Where you saw like what your sights would look like if you're aiming at a dude? Now, have you ever seen a representation of sight picture on a threat when the threat was not giving you the ideal sight picture? Like maybe he was like this. Maybe he was behind cover. Something like that. So here's our 3-dimensional target. From the front, we're still kind of in the area of 2 dimensions, right? But now, from your point of view, just that slight turn, does that change maybe where you can put your sights?
Yeah.
Now what about worst case scenario, full side presentation? What didn't change size? The head. The head roughly stays the same side no matter what angle of the body you're on. This is another reason why I'm a headshot advocate. In context, which we'll get to. Human beings are inconveniently programmed, if you will, to not want to get shot. We have this thing, which we talked about, the SNS, that SNS that you feel that affects how you can shoot and gives you, possibly can give you tunnel vision or auditory exclusion, which is a fancy word to saying you don't hear anything, elevates your heart rate, does all these other things physiologically to the body. He goes through that too, most likely. So you both are experiencing the stress inoculation. Does that affect his ability to not get shot? Can it aid him in keeping from you being able to hit him? Yeah, because he's going to naturally go into these deflexive, or I shouldn't say deflexive, reflexive, or precognitive reflexes or startles or what have you, to where he tries to make himself as hard to hit as possible. And if you're on the gun and he's moving to cover, now you've got a moving target that is a less than ideal presentation. He can also crouch, he can hide behind things. Your presentation can be from you're on the ground and he's standing above you, turned slightly sideways as he sees you draw the gun. He knocked you down thinking it was going to be easy, and then you go for a gun and now he's got to change everything. So your sight picture is going to be a moving, fluid sight picture. He's going to constantly alter your ability to get hits. Now, I'm going to talk about this as a worst case scenario because the best case scenario is he gives you the NRA target. Right here, bro, got an X and everything. Even though that X is about 2 inches too low physiologically speaking, but we'll get to anatomy. So now, I have to factor my sight alignment, my sight picture, on a sight picture that keeps fucking moving on me. Or can move on me. And I've got how much time to deliver rounds?
As long as you need it.
Up to the rest of your life. Which is entirely dependent on you. Now, I don't like to speak with hyperbole. I don't like to say things like, oh, you're gonna die, or it'll get you killed in the streets, or shit like that. But let's be realistic about this. If we fail, what is the penalty for failure? Up to and including death. At the worst case scenario, we shoot at him, we miss. I should say best case scenario. We shoot at him, we miss, but he decides he doesn't want to press the fight and he runs away. I would call that a win through no effort of your own. You got lucky. The definition of lucky, which is just a stack of circumstances that happen to work in your particular favor. Worst case scenario is death. So, do you think training for confronting a three-dimensional threat can make you better at confronting three-dimensional threats? Which is why we do this, because I want you guys to really, if you take nothing away from this class, nothing else away from this class, the two things I want you to take away more than anything else is an appreciation for a three-dimensional threat and an appreciation for anatomy. Unfortunately, I did have to keep this video short for time because sight picture and sight alignment is throughout the class, and it's just not really reasonable for me to make an 8-hour video. I encourage you to take a class. A class is self-defense focused. If you don't come to me, there's plenty of other great instructors out there, but it's a concept that doesn't exist in the static. You have to actually get out to somebody and talk to and learn from people who can apply sight picture, sight alignment to real world situations. And the term real world, again, is becoming cliche, just like tactical did. We finally kind of got away from that a little bit. But it's still important because if we're training for self-defense, these are things that we have to appreciate and things that we have to understand. Just because you don't want to accept the fact that sight picture and sight alignment are affected by your threat does not mean it in fact will happen, because it will. So when we practice for it, we have to incorporate that possibility into the way that we train, or we are trained, and the way that we practice for self-defense shooting. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.